older boys and girls, welcome to another episode of The Drop Clutch with me, Ricky V. In this series, I'm interviewing as many metal drummers from around New Zealand as I can get to, just to try and find out what makes these guys and girls tick. Now, my guest tonight came highly recommended by Tim Mekalick, who you may remember I interviewed a few episodes ago. He is the drummer for Omeka. He is the drummer for Tainted, which is an older band now that's no longer around, but their music video Departed is fucking super dope, so I highly recommend you check it out. And Slimivich, I have Mo Galloway. Mo, how we doing, bro?
Yeah, good, Ricky. Yourself?
I
Nice to finally
am
meet you.
Nice to finally meet you, sir. Absolutely. So, to get us started, please, Mo, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, about your history, maybe give us a rundown of Omeka and Slimivich, please.
Sure. So I'm Mo, based in Christchurch. I've been playing music since I think I actually came out of the womb a drummer, kicking and screaming, and just never really grew out of it. Um, yeah, I've sort of like learned sort of drums, percussion, piano, bit of guitar as a kid. Always wanted to I always gravitated towards percussion though. That was the way my piano teacher used to get me to learn songs. That was, she'd sort of bait me and say, you learn this song on piano, you can play the drums. So it was good motivation. Um, yeah, I
Okay.
just always sort of gravitated from a very young age towards sort of quite heavy sort of music. So like my mum has a lot to do with my influence in music. She raised me I grew up listening to like Queen, for example, from a very young age, which no, not super heavy, but bands like Led Zeppelin, even like really old Aerosmith, AC/DC. She got me into Metallica when I was sort of very young. So that sort of stemmed my interest in kind of what made me gravitate towards wanting to play sort of more aggressive sort of music from I'd say a toddler. So yeah, I've sort of been playing music most of my life. I've always sort of from about the age of sort of 15, 16, played in bands.
Wow.
I've played in quite a few sort of bands that really didn't eventuate into anything. That was, I mean, I'm sure you'll know as well, being a musician, it's always hard to find, a collection of people who are always on the same page.
Absolutely.
So, but it's just always been sort of my passion just to create music and perform. Mainly sort of like play music to play live. That's sort of my big buzz. Yeah, so I've sort of played in maybe about 7 or 8 bands throughout the years. It's back in early 2011 when I was, when I was 22. I got a phone call from bass player Liam, who was the bassist in Tainted at the time, and wanted to know if I wanted to audition. Which I was very keen on. I was a huge fan of that band, and had a couple of auditions, got on real well with the guys, and then sort of came on board. First show I did with those guys, yeah, and like sort of the first quarter of 2011 was with I Am Giant down Timaru.
Wow.
That was a pretty good show. It was meant to be sort of like a part of a bigger tour, but weather came in unfortunately and sort of put all of that to a halt apart from the one show. So, but that was quite an introduction into what became the next sort of like 5 years of my life.
Sure.
That was really cool. Um, yeah, so that's kind of like where it all sort of kicked off for me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And Omeka and Slimovich, how did they get started?
So Omeka sort of came out of um, my inability to sort of not do something musical. So back in sort of towards the end of 2015, Tainted, we had our last show with Hell Yeah, down here in Christchurch,
Oh,
and that band after that point, we sort of reached kind of like an impasse, I guess you could say, where few of the members we all kind of collectively really wanted to go overseas. Other people in the band sort of like were starting younger families and whatnot. So it became kind of just not really something that was sustainable for them at that point in time.
Sure.
So we sort of like went on a hiatus, which has just continued to this day. So um, I kind of went through a identity crisis, to be honest with you, at the end of that, where I was like, well, fuck me, what do I do now? I knew I just wanted to play music, but it also kind of crushed me a bit having that sort of end. So
Sure.
I got to the point where I was like, I'm just going to sell all my gear and fuck it, I'm done. But that didn't last very long. And then sort of, yeah, a few months later, I just randomly had some guy I didn't know reach out to me, sent me some riffs and was like, do you want to start a project? I was like, hell yeah, man. I've got nothing else going on. Let's do it. So we just sort of like started another band. At the time, that band was called Fall of Them. So we were kind of just like mellow, sort of like mellow death sort of stuff. So we were around for a few years, and then we sort of rebranded as Omeka, as we had quite a big lineup change and we wanted to go in a different direction. So Omeka's kind of only been around for a couple of years at this point. So Jesse, the bass player, I've known him for quite a long time. Jaden, who's like our main sort of songwriter, he was from Fall of Them. Our vocalist now, Steve, he's been around the block for quite a while. So his last band was Lebowski. He's played in bands like Deceive the Sky back in the day, and a few others who I can't remember off the top of my head, but
Sure.
fantastic vocalist. I've known Tim Mekalick for quite a long time as well. Him and I have just we're kind of like brothers from a different mother. So he was the missing piece to that puzzle. So we've just been slowly working on writing and releasing the odd tune where and when we can. Got a couple of tunes coming out hopefully in the next few months. So that's kind of where that project sort of stemmed from. Slimivich is an entirely different beast. That's so Slim from Tainted. It's him and me. It was really his project to begin with, where he's always had just a fascination with just heavy music, but specifically not metal. So for him, he really likes like Death Grips is a huge
Sure.
inspiration for this project, where
Oh,
you hear
okay.
the so you hear the recording, but then live it's just like what it's just black and white. It's not the same thing, but it's the same song, but it's performed very, very different. So
Sure.
that's probably like the benchmark for like where the inspiration comes from. So he hit me up pretty early on. He had I think maybe 3 or 4 songs finished and was like, can you just put your spin on this? And it's yeah, we gel really well musically. We're both really driven. We want to go tour. We want to just go do it. So we'll just do what it takes to do that. So we've already been around the country a couple of times, with more tours to come. So we're in the process of doing our first album. We've got most of another one already written as well. So we're keeping very busy. It's just saving those rupees till we can get back on the road again.
Sure. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, what a great answer. Thank you so much. Moving on from there, can you tell us, please, Mo, who are your favorite drummers and whose style do you think has influenced your playing the most?
Oh, this is going to be really hard to not already repeat other answers. So I know my biggest inspiration is probably so Cooter's. I think it's gonna be the same as Cooter, where he said Chad Smith. Um,
Sure. Yep.
like just an absolute powerhouse behind the kit, and really complements the songs very, very well. He's probably the top of my list. But I'm also still really into a lot of other. Like, I don't just listen to heavy music. I kind of listen to a lot of stuff all around the spectrum. So Roger Taylor, for example, from Queen, as I said earlier,
Oh,
he's still a
fuck
massive
yeah.
inspiration on me. Like sonically, the way that guy has the way his drums sound, that's always been a huge influence on me. Where you can actually hear the drums. I am a really big fan of John Otto from Limp Bizkit.
Absolutely.
So, and I'm pretty sure I think it might have been Stefan who said this on your show that probably has one of the best recorded tones ever.
Oh,
Um,
his snare tone is something that I strive to
yeah,
achieve. It's
Yeah,
just
man. Yeah.
beautiful.
There's another band from the UK called Earth Tone 9 who formed in the late 90s, and I don't know how well known they are on this part of the world, but I think that they would be a very, very close second for best snare tone I've ever heard. So yeah, God, my list is massive. Inspiration though, like Adrian Young from No Doubt, like just an absolute beast of a
Mm,
performer. Really nice pocket. Jose from Incubus, like phenomenal player, really amazing chops. Like Two from Sleep Token as a recent example, just his creativity is just off the chart. Adam Janzi from Vola is another real massive one. A huge inspiration for me in my early 20s where I got into a lot of post metal. So bands like Cult of Luna and Aaron Harris from the band Isis were huge for me back when I was sort of like 19, 20. Um, but then growing up, I listened to like a lot of like boy bands, for example, and I just would always gravitate towards just listening to the drums and the bass to see what was going on. Um, yeah, like what's his name? Who recently passed away from Stained. Um, oh, his name's escaping me. Oh, John Wasocki.
yep.
He was massive for me in my early teens. Even like a guy like Lenny Kravitz, um,
Oh,
huge inspiration for me growing up as well. Like insanely talented. Pretty sure he's a vampire because no one should look like that in their. I think he's in his 60s. Um,
sure. Carlos
yeah,
Santana's
just
wife was his drummer.
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah,
She's fucking like,
yeah,
yeah,
amazing. Yeah,
amazing. Super
yeah,
clean. Just yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
yeah. Great chops. Bands like Sixth as well. Big fan of them. Quite,
Mm, sure.
like just really like they're kind of like Mudvayne as well. Just quite um aggressive, but sort of almost in a fun way is how I would describe it. Just I get a lot of enjoyment listening to bands like that where just the music's very fun to listen to. It's
Sure.
just yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, following on from that, Mo, um, if you can narrow it down to one, two's okay. What has been your favorite drum performance that you have seen live, please?
Um oh no, this is an easy one. So back in 2014, Tainted had a support slot with Bullet Belt as well for Sepultura at the studio in Auckland, and seeing Eloy, it
Oh,
just what and like it just devastation. It-
he hit so
yeah,
hard. So
I
hard.
just I couldn't believe it. Like just we're at sound check, and his sound tech's like, yeah, man, like come have a hoon, make sure you're happy. And just hearing him even then, nothing was like the mics weren't live. I kind of already knew who he was because I'd seen his modern drum performance from when he was 14
Oh,
a few
so
years
dope.
prior. But then I hadn't seen him as an adult. So I think he's about the same age as me, maybe a year or two younger, I think. But then so going from seeing him as this 14-year-old on a computer monitor to in the flesh as a young 20 something year old,
Fucking
just
jacked.
yeah,
Jacked.
and like he's shorter than I am, and I'm not very tall. He's just a monster. So seeing him perform, like they played for almost 2 hours, I think, and just God, all of his rim shots start like up here, and yeah, I feel really sorry for planet Earth having to sustain his hits coming into the Earth like that.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yes.
that's definitely a highlight. Just yeah, amazing.
Sure. It's with the modern warfare, modern drummer performance. I watched an interview with him recently, and he was like, "I don't think I could play like that anymore."
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was
I think it was the
insane.
Drumeo one. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And is just everything is the like three or four pedals with the piccolo or the fucking whatever. Yeah, absolutely crazy at 14. Outstanding.
yeah,
Absolutely outstanding. And that's probably what allows him to play the way that he does because just everything's on lock. He knows exactly what he's doing and where he is at all times, so he can be a little bit freer in his motions. Whereas
Yeah,
me,
man.
I'm like stressing the whole time I'm playing, got to get everything right, don't fuck it up, don't fuck it up. So,
Yeah.
everything's here. Um, so, moving on from that, how would you describe your style, please, Mo?
Uh, I mean, I'm a bit of a basic bitch, really. Um, it can kind of depend on the day, really. I mean, I would like to think cautiously aggressive. Um,
Okay.
in my younger days, like it was all like all I was quite tense, especially like my time in Tainted because God, every show we did, I felt like I was going to throw up beforehand because I I just put so much pressure and I was always living up here, just like, don't fuck up, don't fuck up. And then every time I did fuck up, I sort of take that quite hard. So I've dealt with that a lot now, but it's a lot better. So um yeah, just it's I don't sort of like play hard because I'm angry or pissed off or anything like that. Whereas I think in my younger days that could have been the case a lot, but there's something just quite cathartic about getting whatever is inside out through the music. But my approach to playing live, especially, has always been I want to play like someone that I would want to go see. So whether or not that's, whether that's playing to a gig where there's a lot of people there, or if it's one of those gigs where it's just the bar staff, that doesn't matter. You come off that stage knowing that you've given it sort of everything you've got. So yeah, I think that's probably how I describe it. Cautiously aggressive.
Sure. Awesome. What a wonderful and unique answer. Thank you so much, Mo. If we can focus a little bit on Omeka, just because I know Tim lives in Wellington, you live in Christchurch, you said. Can you tell us what the writing process is for that band, please?
Yeah, so our other guitarist Jaden. So all of us are in Christchurch apart from Tim, who's in Wellington. So Jaden normally he's our riff machine. Most of the time he'll have the good structure of a song that he just seems to pull out of the ether. He's just one of those guys who um, he can just come up with songs, and he can normally structure them pretty well. And we'll rehearse them, and then once we get to a point where we can more or less have a song beginning to end, we'll then start fiddling with it. One of the things that I learned a long time ago, actually from Clint Murphy doing an album with him, was really coming to understand that songs don't need to have like all this filler. So there might be like a riff that you might really like, but it might not be necessary, or a certain passage might not be needed to be, or it might, it could be. It's going to serve the song a lot better if it's a quarter of the length, for example,
Mm,
or it's just there for the sake of it. So maybe you just need to cut that and write something. So if the song has good flow and nothing sort of feels out of place, which does happen from time to time very quickly, then we can comfortably move on. Sometimes there'll be songs that we write where, um, like a good example actually is our first video we put out, Hikiko Mori. We were at the jam room one day and I just had the concept for the song and I was like, said to the guys, I want to write a song and this is kind of the concept I have for it, Hikiko Mori, which is essentially like a Japanese term for a modern day hermit. Um, and
okay.
then Jaden just busts out the opening riff just like that. And that song just sort of like was a good example of it just sort of fell together. Um, and then normally we'll demo it. And then if there are like little tricks and stuff we want to throw in there, because I quite like adding in pieces to songs where you might randomly just change, like the song might just change subdivision, for example, just like add, I call them tricks, whatever you want to call it, just to kind of make it every now and then to sort of throw the listener off, not necessarily like in a progressive way. I suppose it is a little bit proggy, but I wouldn't call us a proggy band. But yeah, just if the song kind of needs that little like something, we'll sort of have a think about it. And sometimes it'll happen quickly, sometimes it'll take months to sort of make things fit together. But we've also learned the hard way, sometimes we'll write a song and we might battle with it. And then it gets to a point where we just think we probably just need to shelf the song and maybe we'll never come back to it. Maybe we will. Maybe we'll write a riff for it in a year's time that might fit with it. We've certainly had to throw a ton of songs in the trash can, sort of
Mm,
three quarters finished that, you know, hurt at the time, but it's just kind of not worth the pain if it
sure,
doesn't work.
sure. Sometimes you'll bastardize riffs and put them in other songs.
Yeah, yeah, we've
Yeah,
definitely
yeah,
done that. Yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
Like you'd be like, oh man, that outro is really cool. We have to keep that. So we've done that a few times. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Awesome. Right. Well, you've obviously been playing drums for a long time, but as most of us know, the journey never ends. Is there a specific technique that you are practicing or working on improving at the moment?
Yeah, so at the moment, I've been working with the drummer from I Prevail through his drum beats online academy. So I've been doing a
Yep.
few of the courses on there, mainly around like sort of improving. Like for me, one of the things I've always had a bit of a battle with is just kind of like flow around the kit. Um, and what I mean by that is like a lot of the gospel drummers you see just have this incredible way where they can express themselves with just this flawless flow where everything, when you listen to them play, it's really busy a lot of the time and it's very rudiment and chop orientated, but it just trucks along really nicely. It has this really nice sort of flow to it. So and a lot of that I think comes through just repetition and having everything nice and relaxed all the time. So that's been a big focus for me for the last handful of years, is just being relaxed, because I know, and especially as I've gotten older, like tensing up live and whatnot can just really make you play like shit.
Mm.
And then I don't. I've had it happen enough times where I don't want to walk away from a gig and think that was embarrassing. Um, so
Oh,
that and then also I've been working through the uh one of the kick drum courses with Chris Turner
okay.
that I've just started literally last week. So that's been really good. Just sort of like learning about odd note groupings on the feet. I've always probably been more of like a hands orientated drummer. Um, but like you say, it's always a journey. It's always I
Always a journey.
always want to expand my vocabulary. So that's kind of what I'm working on at the moment. Yeah.
Sure. Fantastic. Thank you very much. All right, Mo. We now move on to a game that I call First, Last, Best, and Worst. This is where you tell us about the first show that you ever played, the last show that you ever played, what your best show was, that's open to interpretation, and the worst show that too is open to interpretation. We'll get to both of those in just a minute. But to start us off, please, what was the first show that you ever played?
Um, the first show I ever did with a band would have been the first band that I was in, and I would have been 16, I think. And it was in front of, so I'd already left school by that point. And it was actually at my old high school. That would have been 2004, I think. 2000, yeah, about then. 2005, sorry. So yeah, it was just in front of it was at like a lunchtime gig and there were a few bands that were playing and somehow we just managed to jump on that. So that would have been the first gig with a band, yeah.
Nice. Awesome. And what was your last gig, please?
That would be Slimivich had a gig recently. Slim's gonna kill me because I can't remember it. Um, I want to say it was in April, March or April. And Oh yeah, it was. It was at a local place here called Galaxy, which used to be Arcadia, which is
Okay,
kind of like a big sort of gaming arcade. Yeah.
sweet.
So that was a good one. Yeah.
Very nice. Next is best show. Now, this is open to interpretation. This can be the best that you feel like you played. It can be the best gig in terms of bands you were supporting. It can be the best crowd attendance. It can be the best atmosphere, the best vibe. It's really open to interpretation. Please.
So this is actually that Sepultura show I mentioned.
I had a feeling.
That's Yeah, it's the only show that I can remember where leading up to it, and I can't explain why. I just felt really sort of settled and quite calm. It had been a really like nice day hanging out with friends leading up to it, getting to meet those guys before they played as well. It was just like one of those days where the vibe and everything was just really quite quite perfect. And just for some reason, I had no nerves, that's the only time that's ever happened ever, before or since. And with the exception of not being able to hear our sample intro, so I was sort of like watching Tim to like know when to come in, because oh man, this is gonna be really bad if I don't come in on time. Because with that particular set, we all came in at the same time, just straight into our first song. And that would have been embarrassing in front of a full packed studio. But so once we all came in, I was sweet, played well, felt relaxed, and then got to see that epic performance from Eloy afterwards. I think that was easily the best.
Oh, fuck yeah. Awesome, man. Lastly is worst show. Now, this, conversely can be the worst that you feel like you played. It can be the worst kit that you've had to play on because there's some shitters out there. It can be the worst crowd. It can be the worst venue. It's again, open to interpretation, please, Mo.
Um, this is quite a hard one. I'd probably have to. I don't really think I've ever played a show that I would consider to be like I've never disliked playing a show, because it's even if it's been to bar staff. But I'd say that I can't even remember where the venue was. I'm pretty sure it might have actually been um, it might have actually been at the King's Arms in Auckland, one of the last shows that Tainted did up there. And the reason why it was the worst for me is because I can just remember being very, very, very tense and feeling a little bit under the weather that night.
Mm.
And it was one of those gigs that I came away from where I just felt, man, that I definitely didn't do myself justice with that show. And that's one of those ones that's always, every now and then will pop back into the back of my head, and it's just like, don't do that again. Like, okay.
Sure, sure. Fair
Yeah.
call, man. Yeah, no, you definitely don't want to be tense walking up there. That's the, yeah, recipe for a bad fucking time. All right. So, if people want to find Omeka or Slimivich, Mo, whereabouts would they go?
We are on Instagram and I believe the Facebooks as well. So it'll just be Omeka, Omeka, or Slimivich, Slimivich. We'll be on both those platforms. We do have music videos. Omeka has two music videos on YouTube. So Hikiko Mori and Degradation, which we put out at the end of last year. And we've got a couple more coming before the end of this year.
Fuck yeah.
Slimivich, same deal, YouTube's. There's a couple of videos out. We've got more music that we're hoping to release soon with videos. Both projects we're in the middle of recording albums for as well, which will hopefully be out as time allows, as finances allow. So, I'm not going to put a date on it because dates are what, time just slips by, man.
Yes,
So
it does.
it has been worked on. New music's always coming. So yeah, stay tuned. Hopefully not too far away.
Excellent. Well, Mo, we are now at the very last part of the show. So this is where you get to make any plugs for any things that you've got coming up. Obviously, you've just made a couple, but if there's anything outside of that, and make any shout outs to any people that you want to make shout outs to. Mo, sir, the floor is yours.
Um, so I've got a couple of gigs coming up both in Christchurch. There's a punk versus metal festival, which both
Mm,
Omeka and Omeka and Slimivich are both on that bill, so that'll be a fun night, double duties. I quite like that. Get my cardio in. So that's September 14th, I believe, at the Embankment. In November, Slimivich is playing Redfest, which is the guys from Audio Organic Studios down here in Christchurch are putting that together. So that'll be a fun day of a lot of different bands. There's bands like Elodie, who are a local sort of band here as well. Love those guys. So it's anywhere from like them to DJs to Slimivich, where, you know, whatever the hell we are. So that'll be fun time. Shout outs to my boys in Pull Down the Sun.
Oh,
Fucking love those guys.
fucking love those guys.
One mention that I want to shout out to. Now, this is a band that hasn't been around for a really long time though. That is the band Seasons. So they're probably one of my favorite bands who have ever come out of this country. They haven't been around for a long time, but their album Patriarch, man, that's a beautiful piece of art. That album.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, thank you so very much, Mo, for being on my show, man. It's genuinely nice to meet you, and this has been fucking awesome. Thank you so much, man.
Dude, it's been a pleasure to meet you, and it's really cool that you're doing this too. It's been really awesome to watch the episodes and just to hear, you know, there's so much crossover between all these, you know, different drummers, and there's, you know, how much we all have in common. And I've actually discovered artists who I've never heard of just from listening to these guys talk. Yeah, I think you're doing the community a real service by doing this, man. So props to you.
Oh, thank you very much, man. It's a very generous appraisal. As I've said time and time again, it's just about getting drummers out from behind the smoke and lights. You know, a band is, and I harp on about this, and I'll say it every episode if I have to, a band is only as good as its drummer. And the more, more of the limelight that I can give to you drummers, us drummers, you drummers, the better it is, because, you know, we're fucking awesome, and we need some of that light too.
You are right. We are fucking awesome.
We are fucking awesome. Awesome. Well, Mo, thank you so much for being on my show. Thank you so much for watching. This has been the Drop Clutch episode 31 with me, Ricky V. We'll see you next time.
Cheers, guys.